New year, same President Trump. He woke up early here in the nation's capital and again was quickly setting the tone by Twitter, wishing a happy new year to the quote-unquote haters and fake news media, quipping that people suffering from Trump derangement syndrome should just sit back and enjoy the ride because, he said, good things are happening. He went on to cheerlead the strong jobs market he's presided over and tweeted out a charge that Democrats are really for open borders. However, the commander-in-chief is facing a whole new power dynamic in 2019. The partial shutdown is well into its 11th day. There's still no end in sight as Democrats prepare Thursday to officially take control of the House, and they hope to quickly pass legislation to reopen the government on their terms. None of the $5 billion the president is demanding for a border wall. That may be why the president did try a slightly more diplomatic approach on Twitter by the afternoon, saying to Democrats, let's make a deal. And he invited congressional leaders to come over Wednesday to the White House, which is where we find our correspondent Kevin Corke. Good evening, Kevin.
Evening, Ed. A stark new reality for the president and the Trump administration this year. Obviously, as you pointed out, a Democratic-controlled House, to say nothing of the ongoing government shutdown. Partial shutdown. But that will not stop the president's plans for 2019, say White House officials, nor apparently will it stop his penchant for punching opponents on Twitter. If his New Year's Twitter feed were a blockbuster film, President Trump's would have been a good old-fashioned good cop, bad cop movie, starring a president content to hammer his so-called haters in all caps, chiding Democrats for ignoring all of the crime and drugs that open borders bring, and at the very same time showcasing his softer side, even suggesting to one of his chief protagonists on Capitol Hill, Nancy Pelosi, that the time might be ripe to make a deal to end the government shutdown, an offer manifestly rejected by the presumptive speaker, who said the president had given Democrats a great opportunity to show how we will govern responsibly and quickly pass our plan to end the irresponsible hashtag Trump shutdown.
I'm ready to go. They can come over right now. They could have come over anytime. I spent Christmas in the White House. I spent New Year's Eve now in the White House. And, I'm here. I'm ready to go.
Ready to go is one thing, but willing to compromise may yet be a bridge too far, particularly for a president eager to hail border wall funding as the latest in a string of Trump victories over the past year, including a successful Kavanaugh confirmation to the Supreme Court, record low unemployment, a new USMCA trade deal to replace NAFTA, the end of the Iran nuclear deal, and a dismantling of ISIS that's seen the caliphate shrink dramatically. The latter a precursor to other military moves in 2019, including a planned and precipitous drawdown in Syria.
We're going to get out. We're getting out of Syria. We're bringing our young, great troops home after so many years. We were supposed to be in Syria for 3 to 4 months, and that was 4 or 5 years ago. And it's time. We have to bring them home.
But few agenda items will be accomplished this year, including movement on major infrastructure legislation until the government reopens, putting the onus on the president and congressional lawmakers to, as the president suggested, make a deal or suffer the political fallout while everyday Americans suffer the consequences. Bit of housekeeping for you, Ed. Congressional leaders have been invited here to the White House to attend a briefing by the Department of Homeland Security on the border wall. That briefing set for 3 p.m. tomorrow afternoon, although sources tell our Chad program it's unclear if they'll all make it because of holiday travel. We'll be watching and waiting all the same. Back to you.
Kevin Corke, live at the White House. Thank you, Kevin.
Throughout his presidency, some in the media have made a daring and dark comparison, comparing President Trump to Hitler. He was even accused of, quote, following Hitler's playbook to divide the country.
This as a shocking new study finds many Americans don't even know basic facts about the Holocaust. In fact, 41% of Americans and 66% of millennials don't know what Auschwitz was.
That is shocking.
That is shocking.
Here to react, Harvard Law Professor Emeritus and the author of The Case Against Impeaching Trump, Alan Dershowitz. Professor, thanks for being here.
Thank you.
Appreciate your time. Those numbers are jarring.
They are absolutely
How do we get to
jarring.
those numbers?
Well, it's remarkable how little history people know and how little they're prepared to learn about something as tragic as that. And the result is these false analogies all over the place. Everybody's compared to Hitler. Everybody's compared to the Holocaust. Israel defending itself against Gaza rockets. Oh, they're Nazis. Anybody who compares Trump or anybody else to Hitler essentially is a Holocaust denier. because what they're saying, well, there were no gas chambers, there was no Auschwitz, there was no plan to kill 6 million
minimize it by
Jews.
default.
By default. By comparing it, they minimize it. 1 million children, babies and children were killed. People were brought in from all over the world. They were brought in from the Isle of Rhodes on boats to Auschwitz to kill them. It wasn't enough to kill the people who were in the way. They had to bring them in because the goal was a massive genocide of everybody who had any kind of Jewish blood. To say that anything that happened since then is comparable to the Holocaust, and certainly to compare the American political system to anything that happened in the Holocaust, is just outrageous.
Well, the American taxpayer invests a lot of money in public education. Where is this going on? What's happening? Who do you think is to blame for this kind of cultural ignorance, historical ignorance?
Well, first of all, there are all kinds of programs that people are promoting to teach the Holocaust in schools. Not only to teach the Holocaust, but to teach the Holocaust and other forms of horrible experiences that people had. That should be encouraged. That should be encouraged in schools all over the country. Look, the Friends School in New York, here, the Friends School in New York invited a Holocaust denier to come and play his saxophone or whatever he was playing. We see it happening all over. Holocaust denial is minimized today, and these analogies that people draw is the cruelest form of minimization of the Holocaust.
How much impact does this terrible education have on the political, ongoing geopolitical debates about the state of Israel and the Israeli-Palestine peace process? All of these things, effectively, if you don't know the past, it's pretty tough to make a critical judgment about the current.
Well, sure. And, you can disagree with something Israel did or something the United States did, but the immediate go-to is Nazis.
Yeah.
The immediate go-to is...
Or apartheid state.
Apartheid or genocide or the Holocaust. And, what it does is it not only shows ignorance of the past, it precludes us from being subtle and nuanced. You can criticize what Israel, what the United States, what other countries in the world, Russia, are doing without making those kinds of false analogies. The false analogy is so historically inaccurate and so, clearly affecting the current debate, and it has to stop. And students have to know what happened only 70-something years ago.
I took my son to Auschwitz last year, and he was a 17-year-old senior at the time, and he hadn't heard that much about it. But once you go and visit, and you see that, you see the room full of hair, or the eyeglasses, or the shoes, or anything like that. It's so clear what took place. I was a history major in college. For me, it was really clear. But my son, seeing it, that sort of drove it home. What do we need to do for our young people?
There was one really brave Palestinian who built a museum of the Holocaust in Palestinian territory to teach Palestinians that there's no comparison between what they're experiencing and what happened in Auschwitz and Treblinka. Look, I made a point of taking each of my 3 children to the death camps and showing them, where our family came from. Our whole family, aside from my grandfather's branch of the family, was killed. We went to the town where they were killed. We saw the story of a 16-year-old girl and a 15-year-old boy who were murdered in cold blood, and that really has an impact, and it makes you want to prevent anything like that from happening in the future. And it's so important for young people to be exposed to this.
You don't have to go to Auschwitz. You can watch a documentary. You can go to the Holocaust Museum, but you have to make an effort, because I think the point is it's not being taught in school the way, and there's lots of, we've talked about 9/11 isn't being taught. The Holocaust isn't being taught enough in school. They're not learning about Stalin, and there's a lot of things that are going on in public schools. I think it's incumbent on parents to really take the lead on this.
I agree with you. Look, parents are the key to a child's education. If it's not being done in the school, it has to be done at home.
For the primary teachers.
History is prologue, and what happened in the past is prologue to the future. And if we really want never again to become a reality, we have to teach our students what actually happened and how American democracy, no matter where you stand on the current president, bears no relationship to what happened in Germany in the 1930s.
Great point.
We only have one moment. You wrote the case against impeaching Trump. Your prediction in 2019 on that front, briefly.
Well, I think there will be some Democrats who will try to move toward impeachment, but unless dramatic new evidence comes out, which I don't see happening, I don't think there'll be an impeachment of this president. Certainly there will not be a removal of this president. He will end his term, and then the question is, does he get reelected? That's a political issue, but the law shouldn't be abused to use the impeachment mechanism against a person who doesn't qualify under the constitutional criteria. The rule of law has to dominate the rule of politics.
You have been a voice of clarity in 2018.
Oh, yes.
Please continue to do so in 2019.
I'll try my best.
Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Professor.